Good evening and welcome to Your Money Matters. I'm David Ebner with Merrill Lynch, and with me today is Paul Mitchell with Mitchell Capital. Hey, Paul, how are
Dave,
you?
good to see you again.
Good. It's always great seeing you. Paul, we have a great show. We're going to delve into healthcare, which is obviously a topical issue that we see each and every day, affects everybody's business. But before we get to the show, before we get to our guests, entrepreneurs have been talking to me about why the banks don't loan. And you and I have talked about it. Your specialty is commercial banks. What can you advise your entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you can advise lots of entrepreneurs, how can they better position themselves to get loans, and why aren't they getting the loans?
Okay. Well, they're not getting the loans because the banks have to look at very strict criteria in order to qualify and justify making a loan. A few years ago, a lot of loans went bad.
Okay.
A lot of loans went bad. We had real problems, and it's overreaction to that.
Okay.
So the idea is to sort of bureaucratize, whatever the word is, the process, so everything is treated the same. So one bank treats the same application just like the next bank will, et cetera, instead of being a little more individualized.
Okay.
In terms of what entrepreneurs or small business owners can do to prepare themselves, I think number one is just that very attitude to think about, maybe I should be doing something a little more specific to help me get a loan, not just walk into the bank and say, here I am, I need a loan.
Right.
Get a little bit in the banker's head to see what they're going through.
So should they? So to get into the banker's head, should they reach out to bankers? Should they say, look, I'm thinking about getting a loan.
Yes.
What can you walk? Okay, let me ask you this question. Will bankers take the time to go through and help entrepreneurs get prepared for a loan?
Good point.
If there's no business to be done at that point.
I think the key answer to that is bankers, like any industry, people are different. One banker may say, sure, let's spend some time. The next one, I don't have the time, I don't get paid for that. So you've got to, the entrepreneur, the small business owner, needs to find somebody that will listen to them, will give them a helping hand. What's the best way to do that? Network. Who are the other small business owners? I mean, if you're in a block with a bunch of dry cleaners and restaurants and hardware stores or whatever, ask around.
Right.
Or at the Rotary Club or some kind of networking event, or through LinkedIn even.
Yeah.
There are lots of different ways
Social
to do
media.
it.
Well,
You're the accountant.
Yeah.
The accountant you use.
Yeah, you're way ahead
The
of me at
bookkeeper.
social media. I'm still using the telephone, but
Okay.
I can appreciate what you're saying. There's a future out there, and there's
But
connections.
I
they
think
can make.
the main thing is just that attitude. Okay, it isn't. I can't just walk in anymore and say, okay, I will, personally guarantee, and maybe I'll put a second mortgage on my house. The equity of your house is gone.
Right.
Okay, that's one of the problems too in terms of the collateral aspect. So it's cash flow, profitability, and collateral. So collaterals it's gotten tougher because of the economy. Did the business have 3 years of profitability? The last 3 years? Oh, it had 2, and the trend's right. Yeah, but the third wasn't profitable. That's a problem now for banks because of, the regulators are saying, hey, you've got to be strict about this criteria. We don't want you making bad loans.
Well, but to your point, if an entrepreneur or a business has 2 years of profitability and they need a loan, they come to you and you say, hey, we can't give you a loan now, but give us another year of profitability. This is a huge criteria. So 3 years of profitability, or even the trend of profitability, right?
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
I had
do.
a small business with about $1 million in revenues that I talked to about a year ago. They wanted to refinance the building they were in. They had a condo, business condo.
Okay.
Okay, office condo. So they had a unit that was worth, they bought for like $500,000. Unfortunately, worth $400,000 today.
That's actually not bad.
So I said, well, would you have equity in your home to provide additional collateral coverage? Well, perhaps we don't want to do that. And I go, well, what's a bank going to do? They can't make a loan that's 80% collateralized.
Right.
That's not a good loan.
Right.
The other thing was, I looked at their financial statements, is they were making, let's say, $200,000, two partners, and they were drawing from the company $110,000 each. Very profitable company. Company's left with no money left in the business.
Right.
Now, how could they survive doing that? Well, they were able to use credit cards to fund that loss, and they figured, hey, we're making money, so we're doing the right thing. So what's the bank looking at? The bank's looking at a minus $20,000.
Right.
Oh, but we can pay back. Bank has to look at the financial statements. So they did listen. Said, look, okay, we can do some things. We're having a very good year, and they did modify their withdrawals from the business, left some money in. The net worth started to increase, profitability started to increase. Now it's only been a year, but it's the right start.
Right.
So I can, with that kind of a trend in a year or two, they're going to be in great shape, and banks will probably be falling all over themselves to help them out. But if they continue in their old ways, it would have been
So it sounds like in the new regulation or regulatory environment that we're in the fact that all these bad loans went bad and banks have to adjust for that, and that just makes sense, right? That it's probably more important now that businesses and entrepreneurs get ahead of the curve and get in to see their bankers, or like you said, network, just to get the conversation started. Don't go in, as you so eloquently put it, walk in, I'm going to get a loan. Go in and say, hey, I'm going to need money down the road. What do I need to do? Can you take a look at my business, and what can I do to make the right steps, kind of like you helped out this other client, to show the cash flow, show the net worth, show the trend line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and find
there's a longer process.
And find the banker that will spend the time to talk to you. And the bankers had some experience.
Yeah,
been in business. Seen 50 or 100 businesses, knows the difference and that type of thing. You need that, really. Another comment about how do entrepreneurs get financing. I saw a statistic the other day. It was amazing. You talk about the venture capital world. Well, venture capital is almost impossible to get money. They require this, that. They really don't want startups anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this thing called the angels.
Yes, angel investors.
Angel investors.
Sure.
Which is part of the friends and family type of community. Network,
yeah,
okay?
That network, yeah.
Do you know how much the statistics I read they put into companies last year?
I have no idea.
66, this is in the United States, 66,000 deals.
Okay.
66,000 companies.
Like a lot of business.
66,000 entrepreneurs, totaling $22 billion.
A lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. And there's no formalized paperwork process, reams of this and all these credit checks and whatever.
It's an investment.
If I know you and you believe in me,
it could lose money, right?
So
there's an opportunity. Obviously, there's a niche out there.
The American system still works very well. It makes little changes in its course and all, but it's still it's a land of opportunity.
Well, again, I think that's great advice, Paul, and people should go out and kind of engage their bankers in that network
and walk around to the next one.
And walk around to the next one. Keep it engaging. Well, we have a question before we get to our guests. Our question comes from Art Knoll in Ardmore, and Art says, what are some good investments other than stocks and bonds? You always hear stocks and bonds. That's all I talk about, stocks and bonds. What are some other investments that are good?
Well, certainly be investments in things you know. I mean, if it's real estate, could be an opportunity. Real estate has gotten devalued quite a bit recently, but you have to look for the right type of situation, the right location, the right kind of quality of building, kind of who the tenants are, perhaps, or who the apartment dwellers might be, something like that. Know the neighborhood. There's a lot involved, so I wouldn't want to just walk the next deal and do something like that. I was going to ask you actually, Dave. What do you think about gold as an investment, at least as part of a portfolio?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, what our guests or our viewers should remember is that our shows are taped. So please contact their own financial advisor before taking any of our advice. But at the current time, gold is overvalued. It seems to be cliffing here, and it seems to be. A friend of mine has a great concept on gold. He says he always recommends 5% or 10% in gold, depending on what anyone feels. And he tells the person, hopefully you never make money on this, because if you're making money on gold, that means the world's falling apart. So I think that's a kind of a good. Gold is a commodity. It's jewelry. It doesn't pay you anything. So I stay away from things that don't pay me. I'm a cash flow bug, so I look to get cash in. And
going back to what the comment I made, stick with things that you know. If you don't know it, if somebody gives you a tip, stay away from it. It's too dangerous out there.
Paul, that's a great answer to that question. And if you have a question, please contact us at Money Matters, 205 East Levering Mill Road, Ballackinwood, PA, 19004, or moneymatterstv@gmail.com. Well, I'd like to introduce our guest today. Our guest is John Reiff, CEO of JRA Marketing and Strategy, which is a agency that focuses on, or they help agencies, business to focus on healthcare. Welcome to our show, John.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Good to see you.
John, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your company?
Well, I've been in business for a good number of years. I originally came out of a pharmaceutical firm. They raised me, put me through Villanova at night. I was the experiment. If they could get me through, they could get most anybody.
It worked.
And then
The experiment worked.
I moved over to the Medical Society in Philadelphia and ran the Medical Society for 2 years, working for the docs and all
So
those
that was
people.
a nonprofit?
No, well, that was the nonprofit. And I moved to Blue Cross, Independence Blue Cross, and I worked there for the battle with hospitals over peer review. We were trying to bring some organization into the chaos that is healthcare. And then I finally said, I better go out on my own. I'm burning my bridges here, and it'd be nice to be out and do some other things. And I did, and started with senior care, worked into some continuing care retirement communities, did some work there, did some national stuff, both on the East Coast and the West. And then from my Wyeth days, which I should say my Blue Cross days, I did some work with the people out on the Kaiser Health Plan out on the West Coast. Okay. And I found some other clients in the middle of the country I've worked for too. So it's been pretty good. And we built the firm up originally in Philadelphia to about 35 people, and finally decided that this thing was going to change dramatically with the advent of technology moving as quickly as it did. And the biggest agencies in the city had lost most of their national accounts, so they were drifting down into the middle where we had this healthcare ban, and we decided to move.
What kind of agencies were these? These were advertising agencies?
Advertising agencies at the time. We had a marketing communications agency at that time. So we moved some of our staff into other agencies, and we went out and did some consulting on it collectively, and it was a good move at that particular time, and we've grown it since then, not only with healthcare, but we do a lot of work in disabilities, particularly in the not-for-profit field, and we find that they need an awful lot of counseling, and they're looking for it, and there's a lot of changes going on there that include not only best business practice have improved dramatically, and they really know what they're doing, but we're also seeing some mergers and acquisitions, and we've been involved in a few of those, and that's been quite
great.
interesting.
Well, John, you're in a great field that affects us all, and obviously we know that Obamacare has rolled out, and then there's been a lot of changes in the health community, as you said. But why do we need Affordable Health Care Act at this time? Why is it so important?
Well, you know, we're out right at this particular moment spending 16.5% of the gross domestic product. 16.5% of the gross domestic product on health care alone.
Number.
So you're talking, when you say, well, what do you mean health care? Well, you've got everything. You've got hospitals, you've got doctors, you've got nurses, you've got nurse practitioners, which are an interesting new piece of the pot. You've got all of these services, and then you have durable medical equipment, you've got skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, CCRCs, and the like. And what's happening is that there's a dramatic increase in cost here. If you say 16.5% of the gross domestic product is in health care, you're talking about 1 out of every $6. And that is a dramatically large number. Left untouched, we understand from talking to some of the actuaries who work in places in the healthcare field or the insurance field more than anything, they're telling us that by the year 2015, that number could be 20 to 21%. That would be 1 out of every $5.
It's right around the corner.
And we're now talking approximately, $10 trillion by the time you get done. $60 trillion is the gross domestic product. We're in dramatically deep water here that requires some attention and some conversion to a number of things. And we've been into some of those things, and we're interested in trying to determine how we can get the healthcare field to react to what's really going on in the economy, because we can't let this leader take this and continually eat into the gross domestic product the way it has. We have to have that spread out. We got to get back into manufacturing. We got to get back into other businesses in this country. The banks have to get on board. I just heard a wonderful observation on the banks and what they're doing. And there's an awful lot of thinking that's going into what's going to happen here. And part of it's coming out of the state, the federal government, which is interesting for all of us, that it is happening, that they are concerned, and that they've decided to try some things to make things work. We, fortunately, happen to work in the area where we have, this is the world's healthcare capital. And it's a strange thing to say, but...
Pennsylvania.
No, the city of Philadelphia,
Oh, okay.
and your suburban market out here on the main line is loaded with health care. We have 5 medical school hospitals. There's not another city in the country with that many medical school hospitals. We have all kinds of support services. Physicians are tremendously geared up, specialists in the fields that we're talking about in medical care, in the hospitals in town in the city of Philadelphia. They're the specialists there. We've got somebody who knows something about every single thing in healthcare.
John?
And that's why people go
Yeah,
to
of
Philadelphia.
course, that's why they
So are we seeing some improvements, or are these still coming ahead based upon the changes in
Well,
regulations?
what's happening is we have a growing poor population that can't afford health care, and they need some health care. And what has happened for the poor hospitals is that they become the general practitioner of the people who are in the inner city and
Which
can't
is
afford.
expensive.
And it's terribly expensive because they end up in the emergency ward, and that's just the wrong place to go. So under this new bill that the Obama people are pushing forward, the Affordable Care Act, there's going to be some changes that will offer an opportunity for the hospitals to capture some of that money that they're spending on those people who can't afford health care. And that's going to be quite interesting. We see how that develops as it moves along. But the hospitals are losing some things this year. They spend probably 57 cents out of every dollar and 43 cents out of every dollar the state pays for their care for the people who can't afford to pay for it. Well, that's all going to go away this year, and that's why this affordable health care package is important.
Wait, John. If
So
it goes
it's 2 of those.
If it goes away,
No, that's a
Who
separate
pays
piece.
for it?
Well, they've been paying for it that way before.
Right.
Nobody's been paying for it. The hospitals have been eating it.
oh, okay.
And they've been eating it because this is the responsibility they share when they decided to open up the hospitals.
Right, it's a fiduciary.
So it is, and it's really an important matter because the hospitals know they have to do something about it. The federal government understands it very much. I think our governor has some problems and concerns about bringing in this Affordable Health Care Act and trying to make it work. And it's pretty difficult to figure out where he's going to go with that. But there's some things that are going right at this particular moment. It seems that he went in on April 2nd of this month and decided to go visit Washington and talk to the people down at the Health and Human Services Agency under Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of the Health and Welfare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rather interesting to see the way that went, and we haven't heard enough yet to know where he is, but we do understand that he realizes that there's a tremendous amount of money at stake. If the bill starts operating in 2014, which it's intended to start, from the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th, 2014, 2015, 2016, 100% of all of the cost for new Medicaid people who are coming into the system will be underwritten, plus the old people who are already in there, will be underwritten by the federal government. There'll be no cost to the state. After the 15th, the 16th, 2016, 17, and 18, and 19, we end up seeing a 5% cost charge and 95% still picked up by the federal government. And then eventually at 2020, the federal government is going to take down to 90 cents out of every dollar, and the state is going to pay for 10 cents. Sounds like it's a pretty doggone good position to be in.
Sure.
In a commonwealth that's as big as we are and is the health capital of the nation.
I mean, obviously, you're changing the payments from state taxes to federal taxes, right? That's
Yes.
really where the money's coming from.
That's true.
But in this Affordable Act, is there anything about the actual cost of health care, the cost of goods and the goods, I guess the services, if if it's a terrible thing or an expensive thing, not a terrible thing, an expensive thing that people who do not have coverage, which they will under the Obamacare, use emergency rooms, isn't really there some type of, and I'm not a specialist, I'm just making this up, but isn't there some type of education, or isn't there another vehicle that can be used to augment that going to the emergency? I think what you're saying is
I think the hospitals have really figured this out.
Okay.
And they're the vanguard for this because healthcare sometimes starts there. And a lot of people in the Medicaid role, and there's going to be another 600,000 to 800,000 are going to be added to the existing roles. That means we're going to have a system that's a little bit driven by a lot of thinking as to what we should do here. And the hospitals have decided that they're going to be the group, they're going to be the practitioner, the general practitioner through the hospital, which the people come in to get services. And there will be nurse practitioners who are very qualified individuals who are going to start doing a lot of more things than they have done in the past, including possibly even writing prescriptions.
So they're currently not in the hospitals, is what you're
They're
saying?
in the hospitals, but they're not in the situation it's going to be as big as it's going to be as it moves along. So if you look at a hospital, you're looking at a tremendous number of employers.
Of course.
I mean, we have again, the number of people who work in this field is just unbelievable, and it's important because we need that. It's an engine in Philadelphia. It probably drives the employment of the region of the southeastern Pennsylvania area, all of parts of Delaware, parts of South Jersey. Healthcare is the biggest employer that you can find.
So if 2014 seems to be the, I guess I'll call it the trigger year,
Yep.
what are we going to see anything happen specifically this year, 2013, that's going to impact us? My paycheck is going to get smaller, the taxes are going up.
Well, I'll tell you
the
what.
hospital's going to do something.
I'll tell you some of the interesting things that have happened already is that for the last this bill was signed 3 years ago
Really?
by the president. And it's been...
What's taking so long?
Yeah, well, that's right. That's what everybody has been saying. What takes it so long, and why are we sitting here with our thumb in our ear? But the problem is that they just didn't have things in place. I mean, when you sign a 6-page bill that's backed up by 9,000 pages that the Congress was supposed to have read before they sent this on to the
Approve or disapprove, right?
to the president, well, you've got a whole different piece of information going here now that in terms of what are we doing?
So implementation.
And implementation, this is it.
The concept, the direction,
okay.
But the implementation, all the details we're working on as we go, I guess.
It's interesting because what's happened, I think mammograms, as we all know them, our wives use them, and everybody else that we know that's a woman has to use them at some time or another. And what's been going on with the pharmaceutical field and what's been going on with pharmaceuticals, period, with Medicare. As an example, $750 less spent on Medicare at this particular time by Medicare recipients because they were using prescriptions a little bit wiser. The pharmaceutical firms have been lowering some of their costs, and in addition to that, you're seeing an awful lot of people who get the right idea about their care, and they want to make sure they stay well. So they do the right thing with all of that. So the incentives are there in the healthcare field to promote those things.
I mean,
and that's because the government has been moving those things,
into
the
that direction.
mammograms and the lower prescription prices. Government, after the pharmaceutical firms, you're going to have to do something about this. You got things going off trademark. You're going to be using your generic. We want to know what the generic is. We want to make sure that our beneficiaries, the people, the Medicare people who use the services, know about that so that they can prescribe that, get that drug prescribed for them at their local pharmacist.
Right, and when you throw out the numbers that you threw out about how many people are using Medicaid and Medicare, and then how many people each year will be using.
Well, this will be enormous. I mean, 600,000 to 800,000 new people will be coming in to the healthcare system, and we're back to the doctors.
And if this act can save $750 a person a year, that's a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah.
So that seems like an improvement.
Well, there's a Medicare piece and a Medicaid piece. That's the Medicaid piece for the people with disabilities and the people who are poor or at low income levels of maybe $15,000 or less.
Okay.
But the Medicare people have a good program set up in Medicaid. The Medicare. They have it. They've been using it for years and years, and it's proven to be very successful. And it's not a loss leader. And so we want to keep some of the things that work there, and move to other things that we have to. In the Medicaid side, we're seeing all kinds of things relative to what will go on with those 600 to 800,000 people. And we think that's an important thing to be looking at in terms of where costs are going.
John, overall, are you pleased the way things are going? Are you concerned? Are you happy? Do you think it's good, better for you, better for me, better for the government, the country? What do you think overall? I mean, where's the big smile that now problems are being solved?
There's some days I wake up and I feel pretty good, and other days I wake up and I don't feel as good. But we have something of a balancing act to go through here. We don't know what's going to happen for the business community fully yet. The business community everybody's starting to see their consultant for their health insurance, and everybody is, first thing I hear from people as I go visit some of my employees, some of my employers and some of my contracted work is, Christ's sake, my insurance people were in here this morning, and they're telling me I got a 50% increase in is that Obama thing again?
That's my comment about regulations affecting
Yeah.
business.
But there's going to be some changes there too, because healthcare is just continually growing in terms of its cost, and particularly in terms of its growth of technology and its ability to do is what it does do.
So hopefully technology lowers costs and we can get things
Sure.
under control.
We keep people out of hospitals, and we put them in assisted living as opposed to a hospital.
Yep.
The cost differential is dramatic, and if you can get them get them well, and again through rehabilitation, and they're back on their feet, that's just a whole other world, and appropriately what we want to see happen. People are living longer.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So John, where do we go from here? Where does healthcare go from
Well,
here?
I think it's going to continue to be a drain economically to a lot of things, and the gross domestic product being one of them. And I think these numbers are going to grow, especially if you start adding these new people in at the front end. But I think what we have here is that the major medical school hospitals are turning out people who are really bright, very intelligent. We're getting a lot of the people we do need. We are short fiscally and financially and manpower-wise in terms of the number of doctors that we have. We probably have about 170,000 physicians short of what we need for the whole country, because a lot of people have not planned for that properly. It's tough to get into medical school sometimes and grow into
Well,
it.
unfortunately, gentlemen, we have run out of time. And John, this is a very important topic, and we definitely should have you back on the show
nice to come back.
to
Be glad
talk
to.
about some of the improvements and even some of the issues, because we clearly have been some issues that still need to be unfolded. But we want to thank you for coming to our
My
show.
pleasure.
Until next week, your money matters.